Hello and welcome to The Drug Trip. This channel is here to feed the curiosity of those who would like to gain an insight to the effects of various drugs and substances through user experiences and stories, with our main goal being to entertain and reduce harm and abuse. We post regular trip reports every few days, so if you do enjoy these, we would really appreciate it if you subscribed. And more importantly, we love to hear our viewers' thoughts, opinions and experiences, so please leave something for us in the comment section and we may use it in a future video. Enjoy and be safe. The MDMA is in the form of one large crystal that weighs 160 milligrams. While it is in a capsule, I decided it would be cooler to just pop the capsule open and just swallow the rock by itself. After around 40 minutes, I feel warm. Or more rather, warm, wet and slightly sweaty. There is a bit of restlessness in my muscles that makes lying still feel uncomfortable. The feeling in my head is like I am focusing my thoughts to the point where they form a great hot nexus in my skull. It is the feeling of pulsing and sinking into my head. It reminds me of that burnt out feeling that is left behind after taking psychedelics. It seems to coalesce with a warm, buzzing queasiness in the pit of my stomach. After around an hour, the oft-mentioned teeth grinding is kicking in. I chew on some gum to alleviate it. I am lying on my bed right now. I can feel my heart beating so fast that it feels like it is fluttering. I feel persistently short of breath, and there is a tightness in my chest. This coincides with a feeling of emptiness and weightlessness in my core that is feeding into the heartbeat and shortness of breath. It feels like the room is spinning and I am being tossed about on its waves, the turbulence finding its centre at the core of my gut. I am warm and sweaty, and honestly, it feels pretty uncomfortable. I listen to some music and it's really quite nice. My vision is blurry and twitching. At the 1 hour 30 mark, I spend some time in my backyard and it is exceedingly pleasant. The sun is nice and the plants are alive and the body load is fading. I feel pretty great about things now. I go back inside to find my roommate cleaning the house. I help him out and I find it wonderful to be in the company of another person. I start talking to him about everything. Conversation flows easily. This drug feels like heavily amplified sociality. I begin to detect hints of narcissism in me, but everything feels so good that I can choose to scoff at them and ignore the feeling. I want to talk honestly and openly to my roommate about deep things. I can hear every nuance of emotion in both our voices. Touching things feels so great. Lying on soft surfaces like his bed or on the couches feels like being hugged by pulsing rainbow clouds. This entire interaction is laced with my typical behaviour on empathogens, which is apologising profusely for being so talkative and overly emotionally earnest. 2 hours in, I go to my room to relax for a little bit. The visual effects are most prominent now. Everything looks clearer, like there is no motion blur when I move my eyes. The entire world is somehow in higher definition than my usual 20/20 vision, with crisp, stark outlines and well-defined, vibrant and deep colours. I feel as though I have a better sense of depth perception, and I can pick up on the minute of every texture, every surface. Shadows are darker, lights are lighter, but the contrast doesn't make things appear to be overexposed. Rather, it makes everything appear more real than it really is. There is also a strobing, twitching effect. My entire field of vision would be shaking and vibrating and pulsing, but every now and then it would rapidly twitch, shake and shudder. Imagine watching a wasp, how as it crawls around on flowers, it occasionally rapidly beats its wings. This is what my entire field of vision was doing. I feel so smiley. I just want to hug my bed and roll around on soft surfaces. I know I act like a fool when I go on social media, and I try to diligently communicate with people while on empathogens. But I kindly remind myself not to do it at this time, to keep this overwhelming euphoria to myself. I do tell my girlfriend, however. I was apprehensive of doing so before because I felt like it might not bode well with her. But now that I was happily under the influence, all that anxiety lifted, and I felt no issue with being so open with her. I listen to music and its sounds burrow deep into my ears and dance. 2 hours and 45 minutes. My roommate has a date over. We smoke 2 blunts. With most psychedelics and dissociatives, smoking a lot of weed seems to have the effect of kicking the experience back into the peak. This was not so, however. I still felt the MDMA in my system. I felt stimulated and warm. I felt friendly and better at making conversation. I felt that restlessness in my limbs and still had that pulsing, burnt feeling in my head. But after smoking, I mostly felt stoned on top of all that, instead of having those effects be amplified. The empathogenic aspect of it seems to have mostly worn off, and certainly wasn't kicked back up by the cannabis. Honestly, this was probably for the best, as I was with a stranger. 3 hours and 45 minutes after dozing. After hanging out for a while, I decided to watch a movie with my other roommate. I bump 50 milligrams before we start. It stung a good bit. However, I didn't notice much effect from it. The movie was a pretty silly and funny movie, but I didn't find myself laughing too much. Perhaps this is the drained serotonin feeling of coming down, a flattening of emotions and a distinct somberness. I know MDMA has a legendarily debilitating come down, and I am a bit anxious that I am beginning to take that plunge. 4 hours and 25 minutes after dozing. The movie ends. My roommate goes to bed, and I too go upstairs. I linger around for a while and smoke eventually. Nothing else really happens. I barely feel the MDMA anymore. After a while, I decided to walk to my girlfriend's house. It's around midnight now, around 5 hours after taking the hit. The entire walk I feel energised and warm and glowy, but it is still that burnt feeling afterglow. I honestly don't remember a lot of it. I passed a lot of people, but didn't feel any particular empathogenic connection with them. I eventually arrive at her house. We snuggle and fall asleep. Cuddling feels incredible. It feels like the MDMA was still clinging on, and I could sink into its smouldering remains in the peace of her house. I felt a bit restless in the limbs, but dang, just embracing somebody and lying with them felt so incredibly nice. I had trouble falling asleep. Like it felt like Sisyphean fever dreams that intimated life, or that type of sleep where you don't feel dreams and you don't feel rested at all and you keep waking up or forgetting you ever fell asleep at all. So it just feels like you haven't gotten any sleep. That was a bit irritating, but I felt fine the next morning. So, in conclusion, empathogens are alright. I could see immense therapeutic value, but as far as recreation goes, I think they make me too sappy to do well with other people around.